I I'm so torn about this movie because I wish it would have come sooner. But then again, much like the rest of us, the MCU learns from its mistakes. Black Widow. So Black Widow is the first installment of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starring Natasha Romanoff, aka Scarlett Johansson. Well, that might be backwards. I don't know. As well as Florence Pugh and David Harbour. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I am so sorry. So this movie is set after 2016's summer blockbuster of Civil War. Clearly, this is Phase 4. Endgame's happened. We all know what happens with Black Widow, but I'm going to touch up on that a little bit later in the video. Now, last time we were with Natasha Romanoff, she actually aided Captain America and Bucky Barnes to escape from the airport in Berlin, and then we see her a little bit later in the movie, but pretty much this is her running away and trying to stay away from Secretary Ross. She's on her own, basically. So we meet this guy named Mason, and essentially he is like the underground, I know a guy. Like whenever you need anything, he's like, I know a guy. And he basically helps set her up with a place to stay in order for her to pretty much come up with something concrete or some place to go, or maybe wait for Captain America to come rescue her. Now, in the meantime as well, we also get to meet Yelena, which is Black Widow's sister, and their fates become intertwined, and basically they meet up with the rest of their family to now prevent another world catastrophe. Now, Yelena is played by Florence Pugh, and I have to say she gives an amazing performance in this movie. Touch up a little bit on that later. And she is actually part of this Red Room cult, this like network of underground super spies. It's not quite Hydra, it's not quite S.H.I.E.L.D., it's just its own little thing. Now, this is where I'd like to point out that I went into this movie not knowing a thing. I didn't even see the trailers. All I knew was that Natasha was being reunited with her family. That's it. So I'm just going to keep the plot very vague, and that was basically it. Okay, so this movie, I gotta say, was a real joy. It was a real treat, because we've been waiting for a Black Widow movie ever since Avengers came out, ever since Thor. Because they've all had their own little independent solo film, and I really enjoy those, and I always felt like Black Widow was never given justice. Maybe even Hawkeye as well. It had a lot of aspects that we don't really see in Avengers film these days. Now, I want to really touch up on the reality of it, because as we're seeing Natasha kind of escape and have to go under the radar and kind of, make moves around with Mason in order to survive and stay hidden, and it's really fun because it's really down to earth. Because you no longer see an Avenger, you just see a person trying to make it. But I think they did a really good job just keeping it down to earth, really emotional, and you kind of feel for these characters a lot, and I really, really dug that. So Taskmaster is, as we know, a pretty ruthless villain. Now, there is a big twist as to who it is. Now, I have to say, this movie was a lot more emotional than at least I was expecting. There are a lot of heartfelt moments, a lot of emotional moments. Florence Pugh, I think, was the strongest performer in regards to heartfelt scenes. Like, she is in a couple of scenes where she monologues about this family, about her growing up in this underground super assassin world. Because as we all know, the Red Room really takes these kids, well, when they're kids. They train them to be super assassins, and as we've already learned from previous movies, they actually remove their ovaries and prevent them from ever having kids. That way they have no emotional attachments. In Age of Ultron, when it was first brought up that Natasha can't have kids, I felt like that moment did truly express how fucked up it was, and this movie really does. And the fact that they can't reproduce, that they don't actually have a uterus, it does come up in the movie. Now, David Harbour is also pretty funny in this movie. He's kind of like your drunk dad, Captain America. He is a super soldier. He's the Soviet Union's first and only super soldier. Now he's old and he has a big beard and he's fat. But I thought that was pretty funny. David Harbour definitely kept me entertained. Now, touching up a little bit on the Avengers, we've all asked the guys. I've asked it. I'm pretty sure you've asked it. When each and every superhero has their own film, I mean, you just got to ask, where are the Avengers? This is a life-ending event. Where are the rest of the team? In Spider-Man Homecoming, they asked this question as well, and they just gave some vague excuses. But in this one, they asked it like every single scene. I guess it makes sense in this context because some of them are in jail, some of them are running from the law, and others signed the Sokovia Accords. I gotta be honest, I did grow a little bit annoyed about how much this was referenced. And that did kind of take me out of the movie a little bit. I get that they're trying to be self-aware, but the moment of times they referenced it just kind of didn't do it for me. Now, another thing that I really did enjoy is that they toned down the quips in the movies. which is something that a lot of people enjoy. I myself, I think it takes a little bit away from when you're trying to have a good action scene and people are just throwing jokes left and right. Not to say that this movie is 100% monotone and there's no jokes. There definitely is, but not as many as you're accustomed to when you see, for example, Iron Man on screen. You don't get to see that. I personally really enjoyed it. That this movie just wasn't jam-packed with jokes, and it's really emotional. It really kept me at least feeling engaged for these characters. But a hero is only as good as its villain, and this is where I think this movie flawed the most. This is actually where I think most MCU movies flaw, is in the villain, because for me at least, they just kind of blend in together. I really wish they would have just a little bit more of something to give. But other than that, I really did enjoy the movie. I thought it was an incredibly fun time. It had a lot of emotional moments that I really enjoyed. They were not out of place. They were not forced. I walked into this movie theater a little bit concerned that throughout the film, I felt like I was going to be taken out of it simply because I already know what happens. Everyone already knows what happens when Natasha survives the events of this movie, but you don't know if Yelena does, you don't know if Alexei does, and I really did feel like the stakes were high up on this one. This movie kept me engaged from beginning all the way to the post-credit scene. I'm going to give Black Widow a 6. Moving forward, what's going to happen with the MCU, but I'm really excited to see. I know there's some great projects coming along, and I cannot wait to watch every single movie of this new phase. So Black Widow, have you seen it already? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button as well as subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and also let me know what more movies you want to see on the channel. We will be doing something a little bit more different in regards to scheduling. So Tuesday is our regular scheduled times. However, Thursdays we will start uploading videos as well. The way it's going to transition, we will have new movies on Tuesdays and older movies on Thursdays. Make sure you follow my social media. I will link in the description below. And anyway, this outro has lasted long enough. We'll see you on the next one.